Yo, what's up guys, it's Talon, and today I'm going to be talking about the 5 most important things for you to learn in order to actually improve in Wild Rift. And I have a video that I've made dedicated to each of these concepts, and I will link in the description, just a link to each of the different concepts. You can watch a specific video that talks about these things, but for now I'm going to summarize each of them, and I do think it's important for you to listen to each of them in the summaries because some of the videos may be slightly outdated, or there's specific things that I want to mention that you should especially focus on learning. As it relates to learning these concepts, do not try to learn all 5 of these concepts at once, as they all will take time in order to build the habits and understand the concepts fully. So focus on one at a time. Focus on taking a couple days, maybe longer, even to improve at those concepts, and then move on to the next one. And of course, these are going to be concepts that you guys already understand to some degree, but gaining a better understanding of them is definitely going to be extremely useful. So again, these are the 5 concepts that I think you should work on the most, and overall, they're not in any order of which is most or least important. It really depends on what you think you need to work on the most. But starting off, the first concept is going to be jungle tracking. So I very recently made a video on jungle tracking, and I will be linking that video again in the description. But basically, the main things you need to understand about jungle tracking are the specific timers of a jungler. So I talk about this very often, but a small camp takes 1 minute and 50 seconds to respawn after cleared, and a buff takes 2 minutes and 30 seconds roughly. These are both rough timers, but it's right around that time. And so you can use this to track the enemy jungler very well. If you want to keep really specific timers in mind, we're just going to use an example. So let's say that the enemy jungler started on his red side. If he starts at his red side and he does a normal full clear, which most junglers do, he will then go from red side to blue side. And then typically, if you are on his blue side, it's likely that you could be ganked around anywhere from 1 minute and 40 seconds to roughly 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Then when we go to, when he's going to go back to red side, is going to be right around 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Then he'll likely go back to his blue side again around 3:45, and then finally to his red side one more time around 5 minutes. These are all rough timers, but they are important things to note because these are, again, roughly when a jungler will gank you based on the time that you're on his side of the map. And then again, you can just reverse this. So if you want to know, again, say they start blue side instead of red side, then they'll go to red side and can gank the red side around 1:45 to 2:20, and then again will come back to their blue side around 2:30. So I've written these down in many of my coaching videos. If you're a member, you have access to my coaching notes, and these types of notes are in my coaching notes as well. But that is kind of a rough timer, and that's what you need to understand. And then you base your aggression on jungle. So as it relates to jungle tracking, let's say you're a laner. Well, then if the jungler is on your side of the map, meanwhile your jungler is on the other side, you got to be a bit more passive usually. Whereas if your jungler is on your side and you know theirs is on the enemy side, most likely, then you obviously can be more aggressive. As a mid laner, you can use this to understand where to gank. Sometimes you don't want to roam and gank, somewhere where the enemy jungle might be because they'll stop your gank. So you roam to the other side. Or you might want to stop a dive, and so you go to the side that their jungler is to prevent it and protect your teammates. And then as a jungler, of course, you can use this information for counter ganking. And, obviously understanding if it's okay or safe for you to gank. So this information is useful for every single type of role. Doesn't matter which role you're in. Jungle tracking, the game revolves around jungle. You need to understand this concept above all else. And again, obviously, you're not always going to be correct. Like, this is an inference. Fog of War means that you're not always going to know where everyone is at all times. And the reality is sometimes people play inefficiently. So it's like, you could think that, oh, he started red side, so he's going to go blue side next, but then he does 3 camps and ganks right away because people do dumb things. And then you're wrong. And, you're never going to predict 100% accurately. But these are, again, the rough things to help you just make better inferences. And more often than not, you're going to be correct about where they are if you use these timers. Then we have the second most important concept. Again, not necessarily in order, but these first 2, in my opinion, are the order. Jungle tracking being number 1, and the second one being wave management, where I would definitely say wave management is an insanely important thing. So I have a full wave management guide. Essentially, the concepts that you need to understand are freezing, slow pushing, fast pushing, and when to do those different things. Again, I talk more in detail about when to do those different things. But generally speaking, and you also need to understand lane prio. So lane prio is having the lane push or having a better position in the lane so you have more of your minions pushing into them and just generally have control over the lane. This is important because if you've killed more of their minions than they have killed of yours, you're going to level up first, which means you can get, an extra ability and usually play around those level advantages and use that to your advantage. And then again, with slow pushing, so slow pushing is going to be building up a wave by only last hitting the minions, but making sure that their minions are slightly lower than your minions. So that way you can eventually build up a very big wave. You stack 2 or 3 waves, and then you eventually crash it, which is essentially a fast push. You push the wave then very fast, get it to crash under the enemy tower, which allows you to either recall, roam, ward, or dive them. Really whatever works for the specific situation. And then of course a freeze is when you only last hit the wave and you keep the wave on your side of the map, allowing, again, when you'll have slightly lower health minions, they'll have slightly higher health minions or slightly more minions, and you keep it on your side of the map by just making sure that it stays in one place. Again, by just making sure it doesn't go all the way under your tower, but you don't hit it enough for it to start pushing into the enemy. So these different concepts, again, I describe in the video, more specifically about when to use them and when to understand them as a laner. And then again, as a jungler, you need to understand these waves management concepts, because it will describe to you, or it will help you understand when you need to, for example, gank or not. Because if a wave is being frozen and the enemy is, under their turret and, pretty high health, you might not really want to gank them. But if the enemy is pushing a wave and you can see that the wave, based on the natural state of the wave, is going to push in the next 5 seconds towards your turret, and the enemy are going to be susceptible to a gank, then you might want to go. Or if you see your teammate building a fast push, or a slow push rather, with a really big wave, and you know the enemy are low and you can dive them, you're going to want to be aware of that. So this awareness is important for mid laners and junglers looking to roam and gank, and obviously important for these side laners actually managing their wave. Up next, we have farming and efficiency. So I guess I did just put this in order because this is pretty much the third most important concept. So I kind of just lied. I didn't even realize that I kind of put it in order. I guess since they were the first things to pop in my mind, it made sense. But farming and efficiency, definitely, top 3 most important things as well. Probably even potentially more important than wave management. So in the video that I link, it is specifically talking about mages. It's me going through my thought process of mages. And essentially the gist of it is in the mid game, what I'm doing is I push a wave before I do anything. I push a wave before I go to a different wave to get more gold. I push a wave before I roam. I push a wave before I recall. I push a wave before I do anything. And this is the general concept that you need to understand, is that before you do anything, you need to push your wave, because that is a guaranteed 200 gold roughly per wave, which is obviously as valuable as a kill nearly, because a kill is 300 gold. But obviously, anytime that you go and you think you're going to get a kill, you're not guaranteed to get that kill, because things can go wrong in fights. You could die, they just get away, numerous other things. So since the wave is the guaranteed gold, or if you're a jungler, the camps are guaranteed gold, understanding that you need to push your wave or farm your camps before you do anything else is extremely important in 99% of scenarios, because that's just going to be what you want to do. So again, you're going to see it in the mid lane perspective from me playing Syndra, but you also will be able to extrapolate and apply this concept to anyone. If I'm a Xayah, I want to push my dual lane wave before I go and rotate mid. And then once I'm in mid, I push one more mid wave, then I go back to another side, and so on and so forth. And again, same can be true for top laner. And as jungler, you still want to push the waves past 6 minutes, because you can get gold from them. You get the maximum gold from them past 6 minutes. But jungle camps are kind of the similar or the equivalent for junglers. So understanding this, and I have plenty of videos. I just linked one video, but I have other videos about efficiency, farming as a jungler, farming as laners, and whatever. You can find them on my YouTube channel in a relatively easy way, just doing some basic searching. But again, just making sure that you understand that you need to push your wave or farm your camps, whatever, before you do anything else. And the only real exception to this is mainly if you see an extremely, extremely easy fight that you know you're going to win, or there's an objective soon that you think is important to contest. Those are kind of going to be the main exceptions, but every other time, for the most part, you're going to be wanting to farm before you do other stuff. Up next, we have mechanical skill / spell tracking. So again, this video, I talk largely about improving your micro, the video that I link, but I also want to talk about spell tracking in relation to that. So first off, spell tracking. Basically, spell tracking is keeping track of the enemy's key spells and then waiting until those spells are out, or understanding how to react properly to those spells. So for example, let's say I'm a Xayah and the enemy have a Vi. Well, I want to keep my ultimate for that Vi ultimate, because then Vi can go in, I can bait her in close to me, and then once she goes in close to me, I ult to cancel her ultimate, and then I kill her pretty easily. So understanding how your spells and your champion interacts with the enemy, and what you can do specifically to respond to them. So again, let's say another scenario. Let's say I'm Xayah, they have Vi, they have Warwick, and they have Leona. So how am I going to react to that if I have Cleanse, QSS, and I have ultimate? Well, I'm going to ult the Vi, because again, if I ult Vi ult, I can keep her close to me, because I can wait for until she gets pretty close and then ult to cancel it, and I can kill her pretty easily. I'm gonna cleanse the Leona stun / engage because Warwick ult isn't cleansable. So if Warwick ults me, I have to QSS because suppressions can only be reacted to with QSS, whereas stuns and roots, like Leona does, can be reacted to with a cleanse. So just understanding these simple things. And then understanding as well, let's say there's also 2 other forms of CC. Well, now I need to wait until 2 of those forms of CC are gone because I only have cleanse and QSS and ultimate. I don't have, 5 different things to react. So I want to wait until a couple of those things go out. So maybe I wait until Leona already goes in and uses her ultimate and uses everything. And then I wait until someone else uses a different spell. Then I have enough resources and enough, whatever in order to deal with that. Or there's different situations where the enemy have spells that are dodgeable and you specifically pay attention to the dodgeable spells. So like here I have Gale Force. Let's say that they had a Lux. Well, instead of needing to cleanse Lux, I can Gale Force Lux first ability, because then she can't root me because I can dodge it. So understanding what's dodgeable, what has to be clicked by your spells, and what you just have to wait for is all super, super important. And then in that video, I go into more detail about improving other specific mechanical things, not just the spell tracking, but also improving by going in practice tool, by understanding, when it is okay to just take risks in order to just improve rather than, worrying purely about climbing necessarily and all of those different types of things. So definitely watch that video as well if you're looking to improve your mechanics / your spell tracking. And then finally, last important thing to understand, and the final most important thing for you to learn, is the phases of the game. So this video that I link is 5 months ago, and so the timers are slightly different. That's why I'm going to currently clarify the timers to you, but they're very, very similar. And the things I talk about, the concepts I talk about, are all the same and can all apply. You just have to understand how specific timers differ. So initially, I defined the things roughly within 3 different phases, and then each phase has kind of, sub-phases that I talk about in the video. So the 3 main phases are the early, mid, and late game. So the early game is going to be the 0 to 6 minute mark. The important thing is the 0 to 6 minute mark is before Dragon and Herald spawns. So at that time of the video, it was 5 minutes. Now it's 6 minutes because objectives spawn later compared to before. But 0 to 6 minutes is before the first objective, is the lane phase, the early game, that type of thing. Then we have the mid game, which is the 6 to 11 minute mark, and was previously the 5 to 12 minute mark because it's before Baron spawns, but after the first dragon. And so before the Baron spawns, but after the first dragon, is generally the time where you're just trying to get as much gold as possible. You're not overly concerned with anything but gold and getting strong in order to fight the Baron. And then the late game, which is the 11 to anything mark, because anything past 11 minutes, but especially 11 to 19, because 19 is when Elder spawns, and 11 minutes is when Baron first spawns. This is when the key objectives start to spawn, the game-winning objectives, and so now your entire gameplay revolves around the objective. No longer are you only concerned with getting gold, but now you're also concerned with making sure you have control over the Baron. You have vision on the Baron. You have the mid-wave push so that you can go and help your team around the Baron. You're never just side laning for no reason when the enemy could get a free Baron, unless you're so far behind that you can't contest. But for the most part, your game revolves around these key objectives. So again, the main thing to understand, 0 to 6 minute mark, early game, you're just laning, playing pretty normally. Then the 11 or the 6 to 11 minute mark, you're just getting as much gold as possible. You don't necessarily need to force any fights. Nobody cares about the fighting during that point of the game, unless the fighting leads to you getting stronger, getting more gold. And then the 11 to 19 minute mark, where your game starts to revolve around specific objectives like the Baron and the Elder, and potentially the Dragon Soul as well. And then again, there's the sub phases. So there's kind of like the first 2 or 3 minutes of the lane phase. That's really focused purely on laning. But then once you get level 5 from your lane phase, you can start potentially roaming or impacting the rest of the map in some situations. Again, I describe that more in detail in the video. And then of course you have the, within the 6 to 11 minute mark, you have the first parts of that after the objective's already been killed, the dragon has already been killed, where now you're just purely trying to get gold. But then you have the 10 to 11 minute mark where you're starting to already prepare for the Baron. And then similarly in the 11 to 19 minute mark, the first Baron is not nearly as valuable as the second or third Baron, or the Elder. So the first Baron, every once in a while you can give it up. But if you give up a second Baron, or you give up an Elder, 95% of the time you're going to lose. So understanding as well that there's a little bit more value on the later parts of that game, the 11 to 19 minute mark compared to the 11 minute mark, right? Like past 15 plus minutes is a little more dangerous, a little more worried about those objectives, basically. So overall, those are the key phases of the game. Despite you watching me int at the end there and dying randomly, trying to kill Aesol in his base, I do win this game. I'll maybe skip through and show you guys, because sometimes people care about seeing the results, but we'll skip through as we're kind of doing the outro here. You can see here we fight whatever, but yeah, these are the key phases of the game. These are just the 5 most important things for you guys to improve on overall, and that's kind of the gist of this video. I just wanted to make sure you guys kind of had an idea of how to go about improving, what the most important things are to improve on. So if you're maybe stuck, you feel like you don't know what it is that you can work on next, you feel like you've improved a lot, but you're trying to find what else to improve on, this might be a good video for you to watch in order to learn what else it is you can improve on. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.